Today, we are going to make some grass. No, I'm not in Colorado, so it's not going to be that kind of grass. It's our techniques that are so simple and sensible, your mothers would practically build themselves.
Hello folks, it's Mad Dog Merv. Welcome to today's show. And today I have a ship that, we reviewed it, I don't know, about 2 months ago. And that was the USS North Carolina battleship by Trumpeter. And what I'm going to do is I wanted to convert it to the USS Washington as it was at the Battle of Guadalcanal in November of 1942. So we're going to go over where we're at with the build. It's not quite finished, but it's quite a ways along. So we're going to go through why I'm doing what I'm doing and the conversion kits that are available versus why I decided to scratch build what I decided to scratch build. All that kind of fun stuff. So stick with Mad Dog Merv. And today we are going to look at making a USS Washington out of a USS North Carolina in 1/350th scale.
So this is the kit that we reviewed a few weeks ago here on the channel, and this is the Trumpeter 1/350th scale USS North Carolina, and this is its 1944 configuration, so it has a lot more anti-aircraft guns than I'm going to need, because I want to do Washington as it was in the middle of November 1942 for the Guadalcanal campaign. I wanted to get it to look as close as I could to the time when Admiral Willis Lee was in command of her, the evening of the 14th and 15th of November of 1942, outside of the waters of Guadalcanal. She was in company with the South Dakota and 4 destroyers. The 4 destroyers came under fire and were mostly sunk almost immediately. The South Dakota inadvertently came under fire from the Japanese. And there's a problem with the radar that we'll talk about here in a little bit as to why the Washington didn't engage immediately. But it worked out fine. After a few minutes, the Washington engaged. It turned out to be the Japanese battleship Kirishima, where she scored over 20 hits in just a matter of minutes and sent it to the bottom of the sea. An absolutely amazing feat, and one of these days we'll talk more about Admiral Lee and just the fact that he was an amazing man with in and of himself with what he had done with gunnery in his lifetime. So anyway, so I didn't take the time to get any plans, but I at least looked at a bunch of reference photos, and I could see here's Washington in I think it's August or September of 42. These things circled in red are just where I'm going to need to start making changes from the kit to get it where I want to get it. So you can see there's quite a few, and there's even more than this, but this was where I started. Looking at the superstructure, to backdate it properly, I've got to remove some of the anti-aircraft guns, some of the tubs. The life draft arrangement is different. A lot of different things here to do. So I decided to go ahead and make these modifications myself. So I took the bridge, as you can see here. I did throw some paint on it for reference for what I was doing. And I began to cut off, like you can see here, some director tubs that were on here. And these director tubs, this is actually where there's going to be a 20 millimeter Oerlikon gun and a shield. The conning tower, the top of the conning tower is different as well. This is a piece that I was able to salvage and cut and modify. It's going to go directly above the main bridge area. You'll see where that goes here in a minute. And here's some of the modifications with some of the scratch-built plastic. You'll notice that I've decided to go ahead and do my decks in this area in linoleum. Now, this ship was launched in 1941, and I'm pretty sure that it launched with linoleum in certain areas of the deck. So obviously that was all taken away in December, January of 1942. But regardless, I decided to go ahead and model mine with the linoleum decks. And you can see where I've put the 20 millimeter gun here. And I've put a 1.1 tub in and a director tub for that. Here is the aft island and some of the modifications I had to make. You can see here I had to do some modifications after I had already thought I was finished, because in looking at the photos again and again, I could see that there were areas I needed to still modify. So the little radar that we want to look at is right dead center in the middle of the big pillar here. I don't know what to call it, the bridge area. It's an SG radar, and this search radar, because of where it was placed, did not have a 360-degree arc, and they could not pick up the South Dakota on the battlefield. So that's why they waited to fire, because they didn't want to have any friendly fire. After the battle, this was actually moved to a different place. You can see the Mark 49 1.1 director, circled below here, that I need to find a replacement for, because that's not what comes in the kit. Here's a good close-up of a Mark 49 and what it looks like. So I started searching online to see if there was a company that made them. In the meantime, I was thinking of using some of these 700 scale Japanese guns that I had. These little turrets here looked fairly close, and I thought I could probably use those in a pinch if I absolutely had to. And as it turned out, I was able to find a company online that had what I was looking for. A company called Black Cat makes these Mark 49s, and I got them through Free Time Hobbies, and they look absolutely awesome. Now here's a piece that I could scratch build, but I really didn't want to, and that is the forward gun tubs for the 20 millimeter. These were unique to the Washington, and a company called Kraken makes these. I was excited to be able to find those, and I put those on order from Kraken, along with some 1.1 Chicago pianos they had. Here's a great picture of them dipping down in the water after the collision with the Indiana several months later. Anyway, here's these 3D printed tubs. Now, Kraken, it turns out, Red Devil Designs is a part of the company somehow or other, but they make an entire conversion set. I didn't find this out until I was almost done building this thing, and it kind of bothered me because I went to Kraken's website and it's still not on there. It would have been nice because I would have gotten it, but anyway. So here's some other areas that I've circled. Life rafts in yellow, and in red are some of the other modifications I'm going to need to make, some of the parts I'm going to need to find to get this thing where I want it. This not SG radar, the CXAM radar for one thing. So in this picture you see what's called, they call it the billboard, but it's a spare, it's a little place where they would put like a spare anchor. They didn't use it as that, and the kit doesn't have this because it was removed in 1944 refits. So I had to cut this hole and make this. I wish I would have done it before I put the deck on, but it turned out okay. Here you can see I've also removed the molded in anchor chain. That was really ugly stuff. So this is what I got from Kraken. The tubs for the front and the 1.1 Chicago pianos. I got 6 of them, and they are absolutely beautiful, but they're brittle. Okay, so here's the tubs installed. You can see all these little white plugs that I've put into the deck because I didn't do this ahead of time. I should have, but I just don't have as much anti-aircraft weaponry as the 1944 version. And here I've removed some 40 millimeter tubs and tried to sand those down the best I could. Not perfect, but hey, it'll work for now. And I went ahead and put in this splinter protection and some ammunition cases. Now onto the turrets. These things are nasty. You put these sides on, and the gaps were terrible, and having to sand them. There are some gun turrets that are made by Model Monkey, and I bought those, but by the time I got them, I decided to go ahead and use these, and we'll live with these for now. And the aft turret, I went ahead and built the anti-aircraft platform that was up there. And you can see how that turned out. I scratch built that. Made my own blast bags. And you can see how these gun emplacements are looking. Yeah, look at all those white plugs in there. Huh. That was a lot of things I should have plugged to begin with.
Okay, so here's the hull. I still have a little bit of painting to do on these little fittings. You see how many fittings we wound up actually using. Here's our 1.1s with their beautiful new directors. And you can see in the background here the major components of the bridge works and whatnot that we're going to be putting on here next. And then, of course, we've got the 5-inch guns. We've got the main battery to put on. And then we just have a few details, and this thing's going to be done. So we're getting a lot closer.
So here's as far as I've gotten it before we went to the show here. So I put a couple of 20 millimeters in there. You see I've put the anchor chain on. That looks pretty good. I've still got some shields to put on those 20 millimeters. The turrets look good. The blast bags look good. The 1.1s look great. I've added some extra life rafts in areas that photographs show that I had extra life rafts. And the cranes and the catapults are all from the kit. Now, there were a couple of little problems with the 1.1s and the tubs up front. I bumped one of the tubs up front and it cracked. I lost a piece. Look at the 1.1s, very nice, and those Mark 49s are very nice. But here in the back, I've completely broken off the end of the barrels of one of the 1.1s. Like I say, they're very brittle. But overall, it's looking pretty well. I have to rig this still. If I want to put some photo etch on, then I would need to do that as well. But for now, we're going to kind of put it on the back burner as I've got some other projects I want to get going on. At least it's something I can display. But I would like to at least get the flags and a little bit of the rigging on here. And I do have some paint touch-ups to do as well. So anyway, folks, I hope you enjoyed this. And as we get going and do more to it, we'll update you. Thanks for joining us today.